Good evening and welcome to Scotland at 7. My name is Ben Francis, and in tonight's show we'll be covering a lot of Scottish stories, as well as the fallout of Trump's statements in the Gaza Strip and the latest cut in interest rates that the Bank of England has announced. But first, we'll start as usual with an update on the Ukraine war. A person died setting off an explosion at an army recruitment centre in western Ukraine on Wednesday, officials said, amid a string of attacks against mobilization centres. The explosion at the Kamyansk-Podilsky recruitment center wounded 4 people, said the regional administrator. Ukrainian police said it was the 9th such attack on a recruitment center this year and alleged the perpetrator had been recruited by Russian agents. Russia and Ukraine each said on Wednesday that 150 of their captured soldiers had been returned in a prisoner of war exchange. Quote, "Some of the guys had been in captivity for more than 2 years," Volodymyr Zelensky commented on the exchange. Russia confirmed the swap, mediated by the UAE, which has helped broker many such exchanges. Ukraine's military will create robotic vehicle units to deploy at the front line, the defense minister Rustem Umerov said on Wednesday, quote, "Our goal is to create a military where innovative technologies help perform the most dangerous tasks, saving the lives of our defenders," he said. Russian attacks on Wednesday killed 2 people near the front line in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region, and one near the Black Sea port of Odessa, officials said. Emergency services said a house was shelled in the town of Drozhkiva, south of the city of Kramatorsk in the Donetsk region, killing 2 people. The Odessa regional governor Oleg Kipper said a missile attack killed 1 man and badly injured another outside an unfinished building near the port. Germany is investigating whether vandalism aimed at hundreds of cars that was widely blamed on climate activists may have been a Russian pre-election campaign seeking to smear the German Green Party. No German prosecutor or officials have yet confirmed that Russia is thought to be behind the campaign, but the foreign minister and Green Party member and politician, Annalena Baerbock, said, quote, "Whoever stands against Russia's legal war of aggression comes into the crosshairs of the Kremlin and its henchmen." Prosecutors in the southern city of Ulm said 4 people aged between 17 and 29 from countries including Romania, Serbia and Bosnia were suspected of involvement in more than 100 incidents in which car exhaust pipes were blocked with self-hardening industrial spray foam. In the United States, US President or Vice President J.D. Vance will be at the Munich Security Conference next week, where discussions will be held focused on national security issues, including, of course, Russia's war in Ukraine. On Wednesday, the leading French newspaper Le Monde denounced the, quote, "distinguished expulsion" of its Moscow correspondent Benjamin Quintelli after his press accreditation was revoked. Since starting the war, the Kremlin has thrown domestic journalists and several Western reporters in jail and severely restricted war coverage. Le Monde's editorial journalist Jerome Fenogilo said, quote, "This arbitrary decision consists a new obstacle to the freedom of the press in the country. Even in the tensest moments of the Cold War, Le Monde pursued its work in Moscow and beyond." Russia's foreign ministry said it was in retaliation for France's refusal to issue press visas to journalists from Komsomolskaya Pravda, whom Paris accuses of being Russian agents. Now moving to our Middle East update. At least 47,500 Palestinians have been killed and 111,000 injured in Gaza since 7th October 2025, according to the Gaza Health Authority. The healthcare system in the occupied West Bank has been in a, quote, "state of perpetual emergency" since October 2023, Doctors Without Borders said in a news report published today. The United Nations Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territory said on Thursday that Israel's decision to withdraw from the UN Human Rights Council was, quote, "extremely serious." It shows the hubris and lack of realization of what they have done. They insist in self-righteousness that they have nothing to be held accountable for, and they are proving it to the entire international community, Francesca Albanese told Reuters. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz ordered his country's military to prepare a plan to allow the, quote, voluntary departure of residents from the Gaza Strip. It comes after President Donald Trump proposed that the US should take control and redevelop the area. Asked who should take residents of Gaza, Katz said it should be countries who have opposed Israel's military operation since 7th October. He also claimed that Spain, Ireland, and Norway, who all last year recognized the Palestinian state, are, quote, legally obligated to allow any Gaza residents to enter their territories. Spain's Foreign Minister, Jose Manuel Alvarez, rejected the suggestion by Katz that Spain should accept displaced Palestinians from Gaza. Quote, Gaza's land is Gaza, and Gaza must be part of the future Palestinian state, Alvarez said in an interview with Spanish radio station RNE. The Palestinian President's office said the Palestinian territories were, quote, not for sale and, quote, not a project for investment. Palestinian news agency Wafa quoted a statement that reads, quote, the rights to the Palestinian people are not negotiable and are not a bargaining chip. Countries around the world continue to come out in opposition to the proposal made by Donald Trump. UK Foreign Office Minister Annalena Dodds told Parliament, quote, there must be no forced displacement of Palestinians nor any reduction in the territory of the Gaza Strip. Hamas called for a, quote, emergency summit of Arab countries to address the proposal. Quote, we do not need any country to run the Gaza Strip, and we do not need to accept replacing one occupation with another, it said. Egypt, one of the destinations Trump has proposed for displaced Gazans to go, said the plan would, quote, squash the ongoing ceasefire and incite a return of fighting. It added that the move would have catastrophic consequences. And now moving to our first story of the night. Bank of England cut UK interest rates to 4.5% at half the UK economic growth forecasts. The Bank of England has cut interest rates to 4.5% as it halved the UK growth forecast for the year and warned households would face renewed pressure from rising prices. With the government under fire over the sluggish economy, the bank's Monetary Policy Committee, MPC, voted by majority of 7-2 to reduce its key base rate down from 4.75% to provide some financial relief to borrowers. It also sounded the alarm for the year ahead, downgrading its 2025 growth forecast made in November from 1.5% to 0.75%. And warning that inflation would reach a fresh peak of 3.7% by the autumn, almost twice the 2% target set by the government. The Scottish National Party has called on Keir Starmer to, quote, urgently get a grip of the soaring cost of living and the stagnant UK economy. SNP economy spokesperson Dave Dugan, MP, said the Bank of England's latest report is grim reading for millions of families who will face increased prices, squeezing wages, and rising unemployment as a direct result of the Labour Party's damaging tax hikes and failure on the economy. The Bank of England's latest report revealed UK GDP growth forecasts been cut in half from 1.5% to 0.75% in 2025. Inflation is expected to rise and peak at 3.7% in autumn. The UK economy shrank by 0.1% in the first quarter of 2024, a downgrade from the previous growth forecast. The cost of employing low earners will rise by 5% as a result of Labour's new national insurance tax increase. Business confidence has declined, and firms are expected to respond to the national insurance hike by increasing prices, cutting jobs, and lowering wages. Commenting, the SNP's economy spokesperson Dave Dugan, MP, said the Bank of England's forecast makes for grim reading. The UK economy is heading in the wrong direction under the Labour Party, and it's shameful that families in Scotland will foot the bill as prices rise, jobs are cut, and wages are squeezed. It's hard to believe that Brexit Britain's broken economy could get any worse, but the Labour government has managed it through sheer incompetence. The Labour government has boxed itself into this position with its bungled budget, the damaging national insurance tax hike, and the political choice to stay out of the EU single market, which is costing the economy and public billions of pounds every year. And on to our next story. report warns urgent action needed to ensure UK food security. A new report by the National Preparedness Commission has warned that urgent action is needed to secure the UK's food supply in face of climate change-induced extreme weather, the imposition of tariffs and global insecurity. 8 years after the United Kingdom's Brexit vote, the country still had no coherent food policy, despite the fact that nearly a third of our food still comes from the European Union. Just days after the US President Donald Trump warned Europe would be next for tariffs on trade after he imposed tax levies on Canada, China, and Mexico, the report said the UK's post-Second World War food system was no longer fit for purpose and the country's food security was in a precarious state. Increased domestic production is needed, as well as changes to the food distribution system, the introduction of town-to-town food resilience, education exchanges, and research into current thinking around stockpiling and rationing in order to better prepare the country for food stocks, according to the report. The report's author, Tim Lang, Professor of Food Policy at St George's University of London, called for new legislation to ensure the state was obliged to feed the public in a time of crisis. Lang said legislation was needed to, quote, safeguard our future. We must prioritise resilience at every level, from local communities to national frameworks. He said, quote, there is a gap between the official risk and resilience framework, which presents a picture that it's all okay, and the realities that people in senior and frontline roles read differently, adding there is too much complacency about UK food security and civil food resilience barely features at all in forward planning. Acute shocks to food supplies were coming to the fore, according to the report author, such as the impact of the Ukraine war, a major global exporter of wheat, corn, and sunflower oil, the economic distribution caused from COVID-19 and its reaction, unexpected trade routes disruptions, such as the Black Sea being mined or Houthis ships in the Red Sea, and extreme weather, which made domestic home harvests last year the second worst since 1983. More than 70 people from the food industry, the government, academia, and community groups were interviewed about the risks, fragilities, options, and recommendations for how to improve food system resilience. In particular, they provided advice on how to help communities prepare for and withstand food shortages and other crises in supply. The report came with a group of food organizations, including the National Farmers Union. Several of the largest supermarket chains and food producers sent a letter to the Treasury urging it to rethink changes to inheritance tax announced in the budget, saying that removing agricultural property relief and business property relief will threaten the long-term stability of the nation's food resilience. Now, moving back to Palestine, Stephen Flynn called on the UK government to urgently recognise the state of Palestine. Scottish National Party's leader in Westminster, Stephen Flynn, has called out the UK government to urgently, officially, and finally recognise the state of Palestine in response to President Trump's proposal that the US could take over the Gaza Strip and displace its people. Mr. Flynn said it was vital that European nations now come together to protect and guarantee the rights of the Palestinian people to their own homeland, adding that the UK Labour government, quote, can't claim to support a two-state solution if it's not prepared to recognise both states. The House of Commons has previously voted in favour of international recognition back in 2014, but the vote was not binding on the UK government. In recognising a Palestinian state, the UK would join a total of 144 members of the United Nations, including Ireland, Spain, and Norway. SNP Westminster leader Stephen Flynn said, quote, the continuing failure of the Prime Minister and the UK Labour government to condemn President Trump's dangerous plans has been nothing short of cowardly. But if Keir Starmer won't publicly condemn President Trump's plans, then he must take steps to stop it. One of the most concrete and consequential responses to the UK Labour government that the Labour government can now take is to urgently, officially, and finally recognise the state of Palestine. Anyone claiming to support a two-state solution must back immediate recognition, otherwise their words will ring hollow. The UK Labour government can't claim to support a two-state solution if it's not prepared to recognise both states. Immediately recognising the state of Palestine would send the clearest of signals that we are prepared to protect and guarantee the right of the Palestinian people to their own homeland, and that all diplomatic levers will be used to prevent a plan that effectively proposes the ethnic cleansing of the Gaza Strip. Quote, a Palestinian state is the inalienable right of the people of Palestine, not a privilege that can be trampled upon by others. Recognizing the state of Palestine would be a powerful and meaningful step in the right direction. And now moving on to energy news. Keir Starmer unveiled plans for nuclear power expansion across England and Wales. Keir Starmer has promised to build, quote, build baby build, in his push for more nuclear power stations, despite warnings from environmental groups about the industry's record for soaring costs and long delays. A day after the Prime Minister unveiled his plans to revamp planning rules to bring in a series of small modular reactors, SMRs, across England and Wales, Greenpeace said Starmer had, quote, swallowed the nuclear industry spin whole, and Friends of the Earth described the plans as overblown hype. Formally announcing the plans on Thursday, however, Starmer insisted the recent glacial pace of nuclear power development was precisely why things had to change. Asked if, much like Trump's pro-fossil fuel mantra of drill baby drill, he now advocated build baby build, Starmer replied, I say build baby build, I say we're going to take on the blockers so that we can build. Speaking during a visit to the National Nuclear Laboratory site in Preston, Lancashire, alongside Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, the Prime Minister said the advent of SMRs meant progress could be swift, with planning rules change so they could build beyond the 8 existing designated nuclear sites. However ambitious, the project faces obstacles, including likely local opposition, despite hints from Starmer that people could get lower bills if they live near nuclear reactors. The technology also remains untested. There is not a single commercial SMR operating in the world, and the sector is heavily reliant on government support currently. Dale Vince, a green electricity entrepreneur and major donor to Labour under Starmer, said even large numbers of nuclear power stations made, quote, the most expensive power known to mankind. Doug Parr, Greenpeace's UK policy director, says Starmer's plan was unrealistic. Quote, the Labour government has swallowed the nuclear industry spin, seemingly without applying so much as a pinch of critical scrutiny or asking for a sprinkling of evidence, he said. Mike Childs, the head of policy for Friends of the Earth, said nuclear power was extremely expensive and creates a legacy of radioactive waste that lasts for thousands of years. The Hinkley C nuclear plant in Somerset, which is a decade late and almost $30 billion over budget, makes HS2 look like a runaway success. He said, if ministers want to build a clean, affordable, energy-secure future, they should focus on renewables such as wind and solar, and better energy storage, not the overblown, costly hype offered by the nuclear industry. Responding to a call by Anas Sarwar for the Scottish Government to copy Labour's plans in England at First Minister's Questions today, John Swinney said that renewable energy was delivering formidably for Scotland, and that he will be giving a clear green light to the green energy revolution in Scotland. The First Minister said he will not give the green light to nuclear power stations in Scotland. Panama accuses the US of peddling intolerable falsehoods about Canal. The president of Panama, Jose Raul Mulino, has accused the US of peddling a, quote, quite simply intolerable falsehood about the Panama Canal, as Donald Trump's pledge to, quote, take back the waterway continued to poison relationships between the two countries and cause alarm around Latin America. Late on Wednesday, the U.S. State Department claimed the Central American country had agreed that it would no longer charge American government vessels to pass through its canal, a move that would supposedly save the U.S. millions of dollars a year. The Panama Canal Authority denied that claim, announcing that it had made no adjustments to its tolls or fees. Today, Molino rebuffed the State Department's assertion in even more in clear terms, telling reporters, quote, "I am extremely surprised by yesterday's State Department announcement because they are making important statements based on a falsehood, and this is intolerable, quite simply intolerable." The falling out flared 4 days after Trump repeated the baseless claim that the U.S. had foolishly returned the U.S.-built canal to Panamanian control in 1999, only for it to be taken over by China. And, quote, "and we're going to take it back, or something very powerful is going to happen," Trump warned last Sunday. The U.S. State Department says Secretary of State Marco Rubio has told Molino that Trump believed the current position of influence and control of the Chinese Communist Party over the Panama Canal is a threat to the canal and was, quote, "unacceptable." Rubio added, absent immediate change, it would require the United States to take measures necessary to protect its rights. Most analysts believe a U.S. military action to reclaim the canal by force is quite unlikely, although George H.W. Bush's 1989 invasion to depose Panama's leader, Manuel Noriega, suggests that it's not impossible. One of the main motivations behind Trump's rhetoric appears to be pressuring Panama and other countries in Latin America and the Caribbean to slow down China's economic push in the region. The U.S. is long regarded as its, quote, backyard. Beijing's regional footprint has grown substantially over the past 25 years, with China overtaking the U.S. As South America's largest trading partner. And now moving on to our first Scottish story of the night. The Scottish Government published legislation to reform the tertiary education skills system. The Scottish Government has published legislation to simplify the funding system for learners at college and university and apprentices in Scotland. The Tertiary Education and Training Bill to Parliament, which was introduced to the Scottish Parliament today, is expected to be examined over the course of this year. If passed by MSPs, the bill will see responsibility for providing national training programs and apprenticeships move to the Scottish Funding Council (SFC) from Skills Development Scotland (SDS). This would consolidate responsibility for provision of tertiary education and training within the SFC. The bill also proposes improvements to the SFC's governance and how it oversees tertiary education, including a greater focus on the needs and interests of learners. Minister for Higher and Further Education, Graham Day, said, quote, "The bill marks an important step in driving improvement in the tertiary education sector and will help ensure that our annual $3 billion investment delivers the greatest impact for learners. I am grateful to everybody who has responded to our recent consultation and who have helped to shape the bill's provisions. Our proposal aim to reduce the complexity and ensure that Scotland's skills system continues to meet the needs of the future economy." Quote, "I know there is widespread support for simplifying the funding system in this key sector, and I hope that the Parliament will support these proposals." And now moving on to another Scottish story. Deputy First Minister says Scotland one of the, quote, best places in the world for startups. Scotland's Deputy First Minister, Kate Forbes, has welcomed the news that startup tech companies in Scotland participating in the Scottish Government's Tech Sailor Business Acceleration Programme have raised more than £118 million of capital investment in the past 2 years. This increased investment comes from both private and public sources and is supporting businesses in sectors such as medical technology, AI and space. Deputy First Minister Kate Forbes described Scotland as one of the best places in the world to launch a startup tech company during a speech marketing the publication of TechScaler's annual report. The report also revealed that the number of companies involved in the program almost doubled last year, from around 500 to nearly 1,000, while the number of individual entrepreneurs more than doubled, from 610 to 1,411. They were able to access benefits including mentoring, training, and introductions to potential investors and customers. Further activity included 2 international pop-up shops in Singapore and San Francisco to help companies penetrate global markets, TechScaler was founded in 2022 to help tech founders grow their business with the backing of £42 million of Scottish Government investment. The Deputy First Minister and Economy Secretary, Kate Forbes, said, "The TechScaler programme, which I am deeply proud to have launched just 2 years ago, is contributing to Scotland's reputation as one of the best places in the world to launch a tech startup." While this is a relatively young program, what this report makes clear is that it is delivering results and helping entrepreneurs to unleash their ability to innovate, spearheading Scotland's presence in expanding to new markets. And now, in Scottish health news, the Scottish Government's funding to improve miscarriage care. Public Health and Women's Health Minister Jenny Minto has pledged that women can expect improved miscarriage care as she unveiled a new miscarriage care framework backed by £1.5 million of funding. The framework sets out a range of actions for Scotland's NHS boards to implement, including ensuring that women going through miscarriage have a separate private space. It will introduce a graded model of miscarriage care across the country. This means all women can receive tailored support and services and won't have to wait until a third miscarriage. This will include access to prognostic prescriptions where clinically appropriate, both for threatened and recurrent miscarriages. These changes will be supported by £1.5 million of Scottish Government funding and aim to ensure that early pregnancy care is equitable so that no women are disadvantaged regardless of where they access and receive care. The Minister for Public Health and Women's Health said, quote, "The loss of a baby, no matter at what stage of pregnancy, has a profound and lasting impact on women and their families. To all who have experienced such a tragedy, I offer my deepest sympathy." The Scottish Government recognises this impact and is clear that women and families who have experienced pregnancy or baby loss must be provided with the right information, care and support tailored to their individual circumstances. I am very grateful to everyone in Scotland's NHS who works to provide miscarriage care and support. I know there is already a lot of good work underway within NHS boards to improve miscarriage care services. The 2025-26 budget, if approved by Parliament, will provide £1.5 million to support NHS boards to improve delivery of sensitive and compassionate miscarriage care. And now, moving on to our next Scottish story. The University of Glasgow led research shows strong association between casino slots and gambling harms. University of Glasgow led research shows a stronger association between casinos and slot machines and gambling harms than has been previously understood, and gives further insight into people's reason for gambling. Gambling on casino games, either at a casino or online, or gambling on or slot games in person or online, are highly associated with the experience of problem gambling, finds the research undertaken by the University of Glasgow for the Gambling Commission. Although strong associations between gambling harms and these products have previously been established, it wasn't clear if people's wider gambling behaviours were actually more responsible for these associations than their engagement in these specific types of gambling. Using data from the Gambling Survey for Great Britain, GSGB, researchers tested this out by analysing if the association between a range of gambling activities and gambling harms remained when people's wider gambling involvement, the number of other gambling activities and frequency of gambling activities were taken into account. Results showed that irrespective of how much other gambling people are doing, there remains a significant association between engagement in many fast, continuous gambling formats like casino games and slot machines, for example, and the experience of problem gambling. However, the report also showed that several gambling activities were not associated with gambling harms once wider gambling behaviours were taken into account. These included lottery products, bingo, to both online and at clubs, and online betting on sports or races. A second report analysed the reason for gambling, finding those who engage in sports betting were most likely to report gambling for excitement, whereas those engaging in things like fruit machines or online slots like casinos were more likely to report gambling for escapism or to relieve tension. The University of Glasgow's Professor Heather Wardle, who led the research, said, quote, "It's widely recognised that different gambling products have different levels of risk associated with them. Our research suggests that in Britain, any form of casino gambling or gambling on fruit or slot machines and their online equivalents are the forms most highly associated with a harm. To date, the government action to prevent harm has focused on online slots. This is a start, but our data shows that focus should be placed on a wider range of activities, including physical slot machines. To ensure accurate and up-to-date understanding of gambling behaviours, the GSGB provides a wide range of information on the types of activities that people undertake, particularly online. The large sample size allows researchers to undertake a more detailed and insightful analysis into gambling and its impacts. And now moving on to our next Scottish story. Deadline for Scottish Government school age payment applications approaching. Parents and carers with a child born between the 1st of March 2019 and the 29th of February in 2020 risk missing out on hundreds of pounds worth of help if they don't apply for school age payment in time. School age payment is worth £314 per child. It is one of Social Security Scotland's best start grant payments. It is only available in Scotland. The money can be spent on anything the child needs at this stage, including books, bags, clothes, and equipment for school. School age payment is paid around the time the child is first old enough to start primary school. There is no requirement to take up a place at school. This is important as parents and carers could miss out the payment if they defer when their child starts school and don't apply until then. The payment is available for multiple children from the same household, as long as each child is the right age. Social Security Scotland automatically pays school age payments to eligible people who get Scottish child payment. But those who don't receive the payment or who have opted out of automatic payments must apply before the deadline. Some families who are not eligible for Scottish child payment might still be eligible for the school age payment. This includes parents and carers who receive housing benefits, are under 18 and do not receive any other benefits, or are 18 or 19 and dependent on somebody who receives benefits for them. Social Justice Secretary Shirley Ann Somerville said, quote, "If you have a child in the family aged 5 or who turns 5 this month, then you could be eligible for school age payment. We are urging everyone who is eligible to make sure that they don't miss the deadline for applications, especially to all the children in the household who are the right age but can get the payment." Quote, "Best Start Grant is made up of a series of payments designed to ensure that children in Scotland get exactly that, the best start possible in life. This money is an important contribution to families at a key stage in their child's development when they may be facing additional costs. The deadline for applications is midnight on the 28th of February this year." Well, that is everything for tonight. But just before I go, I want to remind you that at Broadcasting Scotland, we depend on the generosity of our supporters. To everybody who has donated and to everyone who has signed up to make a regular monthly payment, thank you very much. We've raised £20,000 from April to the end of 2024, 16,000 short of our 36,000 target. We had to borrow 12,000 to enable us to pay our bill and survive, but the pressure is still on and we need to find enough regular donors to give us financial security. We face costs of over £4,000 every month, but only receive donations of around 2,500. We need more regular subscribers, but we also need to clear our debts. Our programs will always remain free to view. However, if you can afford just £5 a month, please consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter and please donate whatever you can afford. So thanks and goodbye.